It's been a couple of weeks since I received this phone from Poco. Now this is the Poco X3 NFC. And spoiler alert, this is the best budget Android device that I've ever used. And yep, it is better than the Google Pixel 4a. For starters, let's talk about its specs. So this is using Qualcomm's newest Snapdragon 732G processor, which is about 15% faster than the 730G found on the Pixel 4a. Now, will you be able to tell the difference between the two? Probably not, but it is nice to have that extra bit of power for future proofing. Now, this also packs a 64 gig or 128 gigs of storage paired with 6 gigs of RAM, which is more than plenty for a 2020 budget phone, a 5160 milliamp hour battery that's capable of charging up to 33 watts via the included adapter. It's got a 64 megapixel main camera, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, a 2 megapixel macro, a 2 megapixel depth sensor for portrait mode, as well as a 20 megapixel front facing camera. Now, the display also packs a full HD display that's capable of going up to 120 Hz for refresh rate. Now, all of that is packed inside this thing, and it only costs $230. I repeat, $230. I know that I challenged everyone in my Pixel 4a video to name a phone that can compete with the Pixel 4a that came out in 2020. Well, Poco reached out and sent this over, and yeah, it's definitely better than the Pixel 4a in many different ways, except for one minor thing in my opinion, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So let's talk about that display. It's a 6.67 inch full HD display that features HDR10. It's an LCD panel, but it has 120 Hz refresh rate. It's a really good looking panel that looks great indoors or outdoors. The 120 Hz refresh rate definitely helps make the phone move a lot faster and more fluid than other similarly priced Android phones, and the colors look pretty good for a $230 smartphone. I mean, it's not OLED or anything flagship like, but the colors are still relatively vibrant, sharp, and contrasty enough to a point where watching videos and playing games are actually quite enjoyable. Out of the box, the phone is running MIUI 12, which is based off of Android 10, and paired with the Poco Launcher 2, I gotta admit it, the software experience on the Poco X3 has been very enjoyable. It's a mixture of iOS and Android packaged into one, and that's not a bad thing at all. It has all the Google apps pre-installed too, which is great, so you can download apps and games from the Play Store. But the skin and overall appearance is a lot lighter than most OEM skins that I've used, and I really think Poco did a great job on the software front. There wasn't a whole lot of unnecessary software features, but it is pretty funny that you can have your very own control center on this phone just like on iOS. Now, touching up on its overall build, this phone is a combination of aluminum and plastic. The sides are aluminum, which feels nice, but the plastic back feels really cheap, and I'm still not sure if I like the big Poco writing on the back as a design. Now, the speakers are stereo speakers, and to be quite honest, they're just okay. It does get loud, but I think this is where they kind of sacrifice quality parts for its price. It is stereo after all, so that is nice to have that separation between left and right channels. I don't think they're amazing, but for a $230 smartphone, I can't really complain. Now, the phone also comes with a physical fingerprint reader, which also doubles as the power button. I think it works okay. It's not the fastest fingerprint reader that I've used, but it does the job. Now, when it comes to performance and day-to-day usage, just like the Pixel 4a, I had no issues or lags or anything like that with this phone. The new 732G processor seems to be good enough for daily tasks. Now, I'm not much of a mobile gamer nor a mobile power user, but the super fast 120 Hz refresh rate display makes this phone almost feel like a flagship device, so I gotta give props to Poco for the performance gains on this device. I played PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, and Asphalt 9, and all of them ran with no issues whatsoever. Obviously, we'll see how this phone fares in the long run, but after a few weeks of usage, the phone is holding up really well. Now, the 5000 plus milliamp hour battery is also really impressive. This phone's got amazing idle time, and I was actually able to get 7 to 8 hours of screen on time before I had to recharge it again. Now, obviously, this depends on how heavy you use your phone, so you may get longer or shorter screen on time before the battery dies down. Now, last but not least, the cameras on the back are pretty good too. I don't really use ultra wide cameras all that often, so for my tests, I mostly shot with the main 64 megapixel camera, as well as a 2x zoom, which basically just crops in on the main sensor to get a 2x effect. Now the photos that I got out of this phone are pretty good. Shots are clear, sharp, contrasty, although some of the shots are a little bit too saturated depending on what's on the screen, but overall I'm really impressed with the phone's camera system. I still think the Pixel 4a shoots better photos, especially in low light, but you can't deny the fact that the $230 smartphone isn't bad at taking pictures. Now if you're looking for one of the best all-around shooter in this budget category, I'd still pick the Pixel 4a over the Poco X3 NFC. I think the Pixel 4a is a little bit more consistent and way better in low light photography thanks to night sight, and the software processing is a lot better in my opinion. Now is the phone worth it? Absolutely. I think Poco really hit the nail on this one. For its price, you're getting a really nice display, you're getting a huge battery, plus the cameras are pretty good. Yeah, it's not 5G capable, nor does it have wireless charging, speakers could be better, but for $230, you can't really discredit what Poco did for this phone. If you need a new phone, definitely look into this one. This is the Poco X3 NFC.